You're listening to the Valley Labor Report with David Story and Jacob Morrison.
Today we're talking to Magali Licoli. She is the executive director with Venceremos, which is a community center in Arkansas, about a walkout that happened at George's Poultry, which is a poultry processing facility in Arkansas. We're really excited to have her on the program. So Magali, thanks so much for taking the time to talk to us today.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
Yeah. So okay.
Well,
yeah.
I didn't hear.
She said, "Can you not hear?"
No, I can't hear.
I heard her perfectly fine.
Thank you.
Did you?
I just said
Okay.
Thank you so much for inviting me. Can you hear me now?
I'm not hearing anything.
Jacob may be having some problems with his headphones.
But you're hearing
I
her.
can hear her perfectly.
Okay.
Perfectly fine.
All right. Well,
So,
I'll
we got some technical difficulties. Sorry about that. So thank you for coming on. We kind of wanted, whenever I reached out to you earlier in the week, I had just read an article in Facing South by one of my favorite writers, and I wanted to reach out and bring you on the show. But then the more I done some research on Venceremos and on you, I thought it was important to discuss first a little bit about your background, because it's very, very interesting how you ended up here and the work that you're doing, how that kind of relates to the work that you're doing. So could you, just by starting out, give us a little bit of information about you and how you came to be in Arkansas?
Yes. I am originally from Mexico. I am from a city called Leon, Guanajuato, which is the city north Mexico City. And my background, I was doing theater since I was 15 years old, and I was pursuing my theater career. And so I also moved to Mexico City prior to move to Arkansas. So in 2004, I moved to Arkansas for a personal reason. And I thought that I was just going to be here for 1 year and return to Mexico to continue doing theater. But, life brings us a lot of surprises. Can you hear me now?
Yeah. I think it's just a problem with Jacob's headphones. I don't know what's going on.
I don't know what's going on with my headphones either, but you're coming through fine on like YouTube and Facebook. And if he's hearing you through his headphones, presumably on the radio too. So I don't know what the deal is on my end, but yeah.
I just wanted to make sure that people are hearing. My background is theater, and I was doing theater in Mexico City. And so when I moved to Arkansas, I thought I was just going to be here for 1 year, but life brings us a lot of surprises. And I ended up staying in Arkansas. I learned English as my second language, and I still learning. But it's been like 16 years that I am here, and I actually graduated from the University of Arkansas in theater. And so when I graduated, I thought I had to leave because there was not a community theater for myself in Arkansas. But as I said, life brings us a lot of surprises, and I ended up working at a community clinic in Springdale, 2 blocks from one of the biggest poultry plants, Tyson poultry plants. And so I was there helping the patients getting enrolled into a sort of healthcare. And I ended up meeting a lot of poultry workers that don't have access or easy access to healthcare. And so they come to this community clinic to receive help. And through working in that job, I heard horrible stories about how these workers were not able to return to work. And that was because they were working in these processing plants. And to me, every time that I heard a story that it was about like these workers are injured for life, disabled, not being able to work anywhere else, and just trying to make their end meet and to survive pretty much. And so to me, I realized that I am an immigrant woman, and I have faced a lot of racism, but knowing how these workers were treated, it was about like we need to do something about that. I need to use my privilege that I've gained through being in this country, learning English and having a degree now. I needed to use my privilege to uplift the voices of these workers that nobody really wanted to talk about it. When I learned about these practices, I also learned that a community was silenced towards these injustices because Tyson Foods is headquartered in Springdale, Arkansas. And they have a lot of power in the community, in the politics. And so it's not likely that people are going to be talking against the company that is providing some types of funding, you know? Yep. And so it was a taboo, really talking about these issues. And to me, I took it like, no, we need to change this because this is creating a cycle of poverty. And where like workers can no longer work at 50, at the age of 50 or 40, you know, depending on the accident that they had at the plant. And to me, it was about like, if we are able to fix what is happening in this industry, we will be able to fix many inequalities happening in my community in Arkansas. So the majority of the workers working in these processing plants are workers from Mexico, from El Salvador, for Puerto Rico, from the Marshall Islands. A lot of the population from the Marshall Islands work at these plants. And right now there is also changing demographics more in the South Arkansas. They're bringing a lot of refugees to work in this industry. So that's how I ended up working because to me, it was like, okay, I am angry, but now what are the solutions? So I am also the co-founder of IWW chapter here in the Northwest Arkansas. And I was just trying to bring myself into labor, like trying to learn how to organize. And so I also learned that I could use art and I could use theater and I could use that type of popular education to bring that workers to fight together. And so it's been working. It's been really wonderful how workers are taking into their own organizing skills, popular education to bring or to grow consciousness, not only among themselves, but because they also, to me, organizing poultry workers, it's been also a healing process, you know, that most of these workers believe themselves that they don't have any value because for decades, these companies have dehumanizing them. And so it's also a part of healing, you know, that these workers need also to believe that they are powerful and that they have a voice and that they need to fight, unfortunately, because this should be granted already, but we need to fight to have our dignity and humanity back.
Yeah, that's an amazing intro. We've got about 30 seconds left, so I'll kind of wrap up this segment and then we'll bring you back on for the next and talk about Venceremos and exactly what they're doing. You know, to lead out though, it's really amazing that you as a female immigrant from Leon is talking about your privilege, you know, and that really speaks a lot to what you're doing on the ground there and the fact that, you know, generally speaking, females are the least privileged, and certainly immigrants are even more of the least privileged in our communities. So I think that's wonderful. Folks, you're listening to the Valley Labor Report.
You'll be right back.
Thank you, Jacob.
Yep.
You're listening to the Valley Labor Report with David Story and Jacob Morrison.
All right, folks, welcome back to the Valley Labor Report. My name is Jacob Morrison. My co-host is David Story. On the line, we're talking with Magali Licoli. She is the executive director of Venceremos. She was just talking to us about some of her background in the medical field and what she had been doing and what kind of sparked her interest in labor and brought her to found Venceremos. So what was that transition like, and what was the spark, so to speak, for founding this organization?
So yeah, we prior to this job, I was the executive director of a worker justice center in the Northwest Arkansas. And as I said, to me, the issue of the poultry workers was so big that we thought that we needed to focus an organization to secure the human rights of poultry workers. And it's been a journey because this organization has been built by poultry workers, and also there are women poultry workers from different plants. And so we believe that the people directly affected should be leading their work, should be the ones that make the decisions and how to move forward. They need to be involved. We need to develop their leadership because it's often believed that especially I'm talking about in these communities, there is a lot of activism going on, but it's also very like saviorism, the idea of like we need to save them. And really it's not about that. Or this idea that these people, we are the voice of the workers. I always said, no, they have their own voices. They are beautiful. They are powerful. They just need to be heard, and so we need to create the spaces where they can be heard and they can grow their leadership and that they can own their own fight. And so to me, it's been a journey also working and learning. I also said, I am not teaching them. We are all teaching each other because we all bring knowledge. We all bring experiences into our work. And so it's been really beautiful to build Venceremos with those principles, with those values, that workers, the only way to change the situation is if workers themselves empower themselves and also they lead their own work. And so that's how Venceremos is really a space for workers to fight. And so we co-funded this organization. We launched it in October 1st, 2019. The group of women leading the Venceremos had been women who've been organizing over 5 years together with myself. So there are women that have been traveling to other states, sharing their testimonies, and also fighting with to stop the increase of the line speed at Washington, D.C. with the USDA. So now there are women that have been in the fights, in the front lines. And so they're also, because of the high retaliation happening at these plants, we need to secure the identity. So whenever we're ready, they're going to come out. But right now, I've been the spokesperson with them. But as I said, it's decision making. I never make decisions by myself. It's always like a group decision making, and that's what we've been organizing this year with the pandemic. The issues were long before the pandemic, but now the issues were obviously really hard, and so we had to keep organizing despite of the obstacles that we were facing and that we are facing right now.
Right. And something that David mentioned to me about Venceremos that was really interesting and that he really liked was that y'all don't take any corporate funding, and that every other nonprofit in Arkansas is partially funded by Tyson.
It's basically being bought off.
I mean, it's crazy. But, you mentioned some of those conditions that y'all are wanting to fight. And so that I think that's a good segue into, what are the conditions in Georgia's poultry and, broadly, I imagine people in other chicken plants face similar issues. But what are the specific issues that these workers, that they walked out for, that they're protesting, that they want to fight?
So as I said, we have workers from Tyson that they also been organizing a lot through this year. They've been organizing rallies. They've been organizing petitions among the workers. We've been able to organize over 300 workers in different plants here in Northwest Arkansas. So the walkout was pretty much the the last what do you say, the last
straw.
The last straw of the issue. So before the pandemic, I want to talk a little bit about, like, the conditions were not good. And so we were fighting about the high amounts of chemicals. A lot of workers face respiratory problems because of the high amounts of chemicals used at these plants, and also the line speed issue. And so whenever we saw the pandemic was hitting so hard at the meat packings across the country, we knew that it was just a matter of time that it was just going to hit in this community. And because of the vulnerability of these workers facing already respiratory problems, we knew that it was a deadly virus among this community. And so we began organizing about at the beginning of the pandemic, in March, in the country began early this year, but whenever we saw the outbreaks happening in other meat packing plants or in other meat packing across the country, it was like around March, April. And so back then, the companies were not even providing masks. They were not even providing hand sanitizers. They were not even thinking about social distancing. Workers work shoulder to shoulder in some areas. And so it was like fighting for the most basics, And so we began organizing worker petitions and organizing rallies, exposing the issue to prevent many of the tragedy that we've been facing. We were exposing that early April. And so the companies, of course, they were hurt the workers. And so the workers were exposed purposely to get sick because it was denied the information, even that if they were at risk of being in contact to someone. They stopped doing contact tracing in the poultry plants. And I'm talking that it's not only in the plants in Arkansas. I've been talking to workers from Alabama, from Mississippi, from Nebraska, from South Dakota. And everything is the same, as we saw just at the Waterloo plant, the pork plant in Iowa. I mean, the issues are the same issues that they were facing through the whole pandemic. So the walkout was because the workers, it's been almost a year, pretty much a year of the pandemic in the country. And still the companies are refusing to give them soap or hand sanitizers. They are refusing to allow workers to practice social distancing.
Right.
And right now, the numbers are growing.
We've got a break.
Much.
We're going to be talking some more. Folks, welcome back to the Valley Labor Report. My name is Jacob Morrison, here with my co-host David Story. On the line, we've got Magali Licoli. She is the executive director of Venceremos, which is a community organization in Northwest Arkansas. We've been talking about some of the conditions that workers at Georgia's poultry were facing before and during the pandemic. We got cut off by a break. So, Magali, I was just going to let you finish your thought there. I'm sure there's plenty more to say about the conditions that these folks are facing.
And that was something I was talking to Jacob about in the commercial break. If you could, because here's the thing, is most of us do not realize what is going on in these facilities. I mean, for certain, we seen the article about a month ago about the Tyson managers running a betting pool on how many employees would become sick, hiding the COVID from the sick employees that were showing up, hiding them from the other employees. Over 1,000 people in that plant, in that facility, were infected, and several of them passed away. Mm-hmm. So the COVID brings to light some of the issues that are in those facilities right now. But there's issues that have been going on. You know, reading the background on Venceremos, the amputations, the inability to work because of repetitive actions in the working conditions, having to wear diapers because they will not allow you to have bathroom breaks. All of these things have been going on for years, but nobody's talking about them until recently when we start seeing deaths from the COVID. So could you talk a little bit about the actual working conditions on the ground? And these aren't just specific to Arkansas. I mean, the entire Southeast U.S. has these facilities everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, as I said, I've been connecting with workers from other plants in the south and the north, and the conditions are really similar. They face the similar situation about the lack of bathroom breaks, the repetitive motion because of the line speed going too fast. And in fact, the line speed, it's at 145 chickens per minute. And right now, during the pandemic, the USDA allowed some companies such as George's or Tyson and Smithfields to increase the line speed up to 174 birds per minute.
I mean, and that in itself is insanity. If you can imagine, for the listeners out there, 100, even at the 145 mark, you're talking about 2 birds a second. I mean, that's for 8 hours. That's insanity.
Yeah. And so they've been facing this issue for so long. And because, we need to understand that this is for the workers working mostly in the debone department, in the slaughtering and visceration. And those workers tend to work shoulder to shoulder because for the company, they're acting like machine, really. Mm-hmm. And so if they're acting like machine, they need to be all synchronized, the same breaks, the same bathroom breaks, which if the line needs to stop everything at the same time, and that's where workers are allowed to go to the bathroom, but really they are not given enough time to even remove their protective gear because they give them like 12 minutes, 10 minutes to go to the bathroom. And also this company for years has been working on this punitive point system. If they do a mistake, if they come in late after the breaks or come 1 minute late, they will get a disciplinary point system. If they reach up to 13 points, they're going to be fired. They'll even get points for going to the doctor. So workers are used to come to work while sick. And that's precisely what happened during the pandemic when these companies were incentivizing workers for coming in sick. Like Tyson was giving $500 in bonuses to workers if they didn't miss any day of work. That was the condition. And so obviously they were incentivizing workers to come in sick, and they knew what they were doing. And so that's precisely what happened at the poultry at the George's plant. Obviously George's is a private company, and they don't care. We've been trying to talk to them. We've been trying to do launching campaigns for people to target the CEO, and they don't care. So that's why it's so important that workers during the pandemic, it was clearly that the government were not caring for these workers. The companies were not caring for these workers. They still don't care for these workers. And that's why we need worker organizing. Workers need to stand up. They need to fight and to defend their rights to exist, because many workers have died, many workers are sick, many workers have long-term effects after having COVID-19. Like this case of these workers, he only has 55% of lung capacity. He cannot go back to work. He's about to lose his house because he doesn't have a ways to pay the bills, the rent. And so this is what is happening right now. It's not only how these companies are treating them or the health issues, it's also the financial situation that the essential workers are going through this pandemic. You know, at the beginning of this pandemic, they were called the heroes. They were called that they need to keep working and that the plants need to remain open because they need to supply the food supply for the nation. We really learned that they were exporting meat to China, to other countries during the pandemic. And so they were sacrificed for the sake of profit. It was never to save the food supply of the nation as they made people believed.
Yeah, that's
well,
quite amazing.
It was all performative. I mean,
here's the thing: is we're talking about this like this is past tense.
Right.
This is not
it's still
past
going
tense.
on.
This is still going on today.
And I saw this. I can't even remember who it was. It was Charles Payne. He's some Fox News contributor, and he was riffing on Time's choice for Person of the Year being Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, which, whatever. That's a silly choice for Person of the Year. But he goes on about how no, the actual Person of the Year is EMTs, it's cashiers, it's grocery workers, it's chicken plant workers, and this guy goes on rants against progressive taxation, against against subsidies for these workers, against higher minimum wages, against protections for these workers. He's been for liability protections that would make these workers unable to sue the companies that are doing this to them. And he's going on this performative rant about how, oh no, I don't think Joe Biden deserves it. I think the chicken plant workers deserve it. Give me a break.
Yeah. So, Magali, could you talk about a little bit about, because here the thing is like I was telling Jacob in one of the breaks, Venceremos is not publicly not privately funded as far as like what
Not
we see
funded.
Corporate funded, like what we see a lot of the other nonprofits, and that's very important, I think, because it allows you to continue speaking truth to power and in your area and wherever that may be. How can people help Venceremos? Because everything you're doing is right. Everything that you said, as far as the saviors coming in, as far as the worker, building the worker power and the workers standing up for themselves, building those committees, everything that you're doing is exactly on point the way it should be done. But I'm certain that as a nonprofit in Arkansas, but the same with all of the nonprofits in the South, everybody's struggling. How can people help Venceremos help those workers in the field?
Yeah, people can help by donating to Venceremos and to follow the work of Venceremos and support the work of Venceremos, and inviting us to these spaces help us also spread the word and also encourage other workers to do the same, to keep organizing. And so, the work of Venceremos, it's crucial because I always said that if you don't know where to go, people are going to tell you where to go. Yeah. And if you don't know where to go, they're going to give you the money with the condition that you do whatever they want you to do. But when you know where to go, you are going to accept only money that will benefit your goal, your objectives. And so that's why we are very hard on this. Like, we cannot negotiate that. We know where we're going. And so, and also it's inspiring because this fight is inspiring people to contribute, to help us to build this community power that is so needed in a place where they've been isolated, where they've been shut down because these companies have so much presence. And I also said, fighting in the patio of Tyson Food is not easy, but we are doing it. And so we need lots of support by donating through Venceremos. They can also find us on Facebook, Venceremos Arkansas, and there is the link of donation. They can donate any any amount is needed, really, because we are doing such an amazing job in building the workers' power and bringing workers to be the leaders and to lead this fight. Because, we also educating people and allies to how to be better allies and supportives.
Yeah. And when we talk about the least among these, Venceremos is helping the least among us. And I think it's important to point out, a lot of people may not know Venceremos, or a lot of the Spanish speaking or English speaking people may not know Venceremos means we will overcome. So that's
that.
A good tribute to what you're doing out there in Arkansas.
Yeah. Magali, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us. We really appreciate it. Encourage folks to go and find Venceremos on Facebook and on the internet and donate to them if they've got the means. Magali, thank you so much. I think this has been really informative, and you've really helped us kind of get a better understanding of what these workers are going through. Thanks again. And folks, you're listening to the Valley Labor Report. We will be right back after this break.
You're listening to the Valley Labor Report with David Story and Jacob Morrison.
So thanks for tuning in. We really appreciate your time. If you want to see what we're up to throughout the week, get our snide quips about the news of the day, then you should follow us on social media. We're on Facebook at facebook.com/The Valley Labor Report. We're on Twitter at Labor Reporters. I'm on Twitter at JacobM_AL. David is on Twitter at Radical Unionist. That's spelled RADICL Unionist. If you missed part of the show and want to go back and watch it later, search YouTube for The Valley Labor Report and subscribe to our channel. You can go back and watch the full show there, and we also clip segments and release them throughout the week. If you don't want to watch the full thing, totally understand. We also upload the program on more than 11 different podcasting apps. So, to see if we are on your listening platform of choice, go to thevalleylaborreport.transistor.fm/subscribe. We have a website now. We're going to be hopefully in the future populating that with some articles. We're going to have our videos uploaded on there. A bunch of good stuff. thevalleylaborreport.org. And finally, if you appreciate our work and want to help us stay on the air, consider throwing us a couple dollars a month on patreon.com/The Valley Labor Report. Or if you're a member of a union or an organization that would be interested in buying ad space, message the page or message one of our accounts or something. Or if you know David or I, you can message us on Facebook, shoot us a text, give us a call. We're always accepting new advertisers on the program.